Senator from California.
Mr. President, I ask that the quorum call be dispensed with.
Without objection.
Mr. President, we are anxiously awaiting work on the transportation bill that came out of the Environment and Public Works Committee, which I am proud to be the chairman of, last year. We wrote a bill. It was called MAP 21. That stands for Moving Ahead for Progress in the 21st Century. I was proud to see this bill become a bipartisan bill with Senator Inhofe working with me, with his staff and my staff working together as one. When we got it out of the committee, it was I think it was unanimous or close to unanimous vote. And I know when our young people learn how a bill becomes a law, it sounds a little easier than it really is. And I often think in my spare time I should write a little pamphlet on how a bill really becomes a law. Because I would say to the young people who are here today, as well as those who might be listening, it's a little trickier than it sounds. Because when we learn about how a bill becomes a law in school, it's very simply put. You know, the bill starts in a committee in the House or Senate, it moves to the floor of that body, then it starts in a committee in the other body, it moves to the floor of that body, it passes both chambers. If it's identical, it goes to the president. If there are differences, there's a conference committee. Then it goes to the president. The president either signs it or vetoes it. If he signs it, it's a done deal. If he vetoes it, you need to have a whole lot of folks, 2/3 override. So that's how it's taught in the schools, and it's absolutely true. But getting it to the point we're at now, where we await a conference report, is sometimes a very long and winding path. This one was a long and winding path. And I think we are where we are at the point where we hope to vote soon on this because people were willing to meet each other halfway. And I've been saying this for a long time. If we all stand in our respective corners and we insist that it's our way or the highway, nothing ever gets done. Nothing gets done. We must come together. And the Senate proved it could come together around our version of the highway bill. It passed by 74 votes. We were hopeful the House would just take it up and pass it. It didn't happen that way. They wrote a less comprehensive bill. They sent it over. And then we went into a conference committee, and there was a lot of difficulty because there were issues that were just simply not seen in the same light between the House and Senate. I would have to say through all of this, Senator Inhofe and I, the Republicans and Democrats on the EPW committee, were really united. But we didn't have that unifying factor with the House Republicans. And I want to thank every member of the conference committee, Democratic and Republican, House and Senate, because everyone worked extremely hard. They worked hard. They were knowledgeable. Their staffs worked hard. They asked a lot of questions. They cared a tremendous amount about the policies. Now, the great news about the bill that's coming out of the conference committee is that it's a jobs bill. First and foremost, it is going to save about 1.9 million, almost 2 million jobs that are currently held in the private sector, and it will create up to 1 million new jobs through an expanded TIFIA program. TIFIA is a program that fronts the funds for local governments who have a revenue stream, and the leverage on that is about 30-to-1. So if you have an approximately $1 billion amount, you'll be able to get $30 billion of economic activity. So that's a really, really good thing that we can all be proud of. That is a fact. The bill that we have coming, we hope soon, it's not here yet, it's not done yet, but it's close. And what we hope we will have before us is a bill that creates 2.9 million, let me say it again, that creates close to 2 million. You know, I am so tired, Mr. President. Will you forgive me? have to say this right. I haven't gotten much sleep in the past 3 days because we've been working nonstop. I will say it again. We protect almost 2 million jobs that are currently held in the private sector, and we will create up to 1 million, hence the 3 million jobs that are relying on this bill. Now, we have thousands of businesses that care a lot about what we do. These are general contractors. These are equipment dealers. These are people in the concrete industry. I can tell you, Mr. President, that these organizations of business and labor have been behind us every inch of the way. And when I was giving up hope because I didn't think we could move forward, they were there to say, keep on going, and they weighed in. And I think the work product reflects the fact that we would never, ever give up. There's a lot of talk about what did Democrats give up, what did Republicans give up. Let us just say that this is a negotiation between Republicans and Democrats, negotiation between the House and Senate, and not everybody got what he or she wanted. That is for sure. But I just want to say to people who might be listening to this that in a negotiation, nobody gets everything they want. You have to meet each other halfway. And that's what happened in this negotiation. We both wanted to see this as a reform bill. The Senate brought a package together that took the 90 programs down to 30, and that pretty much survived the conference committee. And we also did some more reforms, certainly on project delivery, because all sides agreed it is taking too long to get some of these public works projects done. It's taking sometimes 15 years, 14 years, 13 years to do a road from start to finish, to do a bridge. We need to make sure that we can move faster because our economy needs that, but still, in my view, protect the rights of citizens throughout this country to ensure that their communities are taken care of, that there's no damage to their communities, that the air quality is protected, the water quality is protected, and we were able to keep those environmental laws there while we were tough on deadlines and milestones, and very tough to say, this is it. If you can't finish in this time, and we're trying to get this from 15 years to 8 years per project, if you don't do that, you have to explain why. There has to be a really good reason why these projects will be delayed. I believe the funding in the bill is fair. Every single state is protected, every single state. And this is a 2-year, 3-month bill, Mr. President. Every state will get the amount of money they got last year plus inflation. And that's very, very important. So it is the current level of funding with the inflation put in, and every state can now know, if and when this bill passes, that they can count on that funding for 2 years and 3 months. Everything is paid for. Now, there are a lot of comments about what did we do about pedestrian walkways and bike paths. I want to be clear. That was an intense subject of negotiation. There were those who wanted no funds set aside for bike paths, pedestrian paths, and it was very clear, safe streets, safe roads to school, et cetera. It was clear that we had to negotiate on this. So honestly, I think what has come out of this is a good thing, and let me explain why. We kept the same amount of funding, same set-aside percentage for these transportation enhancements, alternatives. But what we said was, for the first time, that half of those funds will go directly to locals, will go to the metropolitan planning organizations, will go to the large cities. And that is very key because we want the local people who know their area best making these decisions. And we protected those funds, Mr. President. The only way anyone in the state could use those funds is if there's a nationally declared disaster, and there's some unobligated funds around, yes, that could be borrowed but must be paid back from any supplemental appropriation. On the state portion, which is the other 50%, we built in more flexibility, and there are a lot of people who are calling that a cut. Well, it isn't a cut. Some states will use it all. And I say to those people in the states who are worried about it, use your pressure, use your power, use your grassroots strength to make sure you lobby your state legislatures and your governors to provide for safe streets to schools, for bike paths, for pedestrian walks. These are very important safety issues. So I know not everyone is happy, but I wanted to be very clear on that. If a choice is between doing away with that wonderful program that I think is wonderful, or having, making a few concessions on flexibility, I think we did the right thing. I honestly do. This bill, it's all paid for. I have to thank so much Senator Max Baucus and his team, his Republican members of the committee, Finance Committee, and also the team in the House headed by Mr. Camp, because they came up with a pay-for that people on all sides can live with, and it gives us that security for 2 years and 3 months. We don't have any riders on this bill. I know some people very much wanted it. We don't have them. It became part of the give and take at the end of the day. 2 provisions that I lament are not on there are the Oceans Trust Fund, which was part of the Restore Act, and the Land and Water Conservation Fund that was also part of the Restore Act. I lament that those provisions are gone. I commit myself to working with Senator Whitehouse on the Oceans Trust Fund and Senator Baucus on the Land and Water Conservation Fund to get that done. But I have to be completely, totally frank with the Senate. We just couldn't get it done. There was nothing that we could offer or give that would allow us to move forward with those 2 very critical environmental programs. And I will tell you, our oceans deserve attention, and our land deserves attention, and these issues are certainly not going away. Having said that, the rest of the Restore Act is in this bill. That means those folks in the Gulf states that were so harmed by this horrible BP spill will be able to use some of those fines as they come in to restore. That's why we call it Restore Act. Restore their environments, restore their fisheries, restore the damage that was done by that horrific BP spill. We don't know how much money will come from those fines. We will watch it very carefully, but we know when they do come. If this bill passes, and I'm very hopeful it will, our Gulf states will have the help that they need. I want to say to the people, particularly in Louisiana, who I visited many times, your senators work very hard. I will say Mary Landrieu, took the lead on this. Senator Vitter was on the conference, and I just want to say, Mary Landrieu, you know her well. She's unrelenting, and she was very, very clear with us. I want to say to my friend who's in the chair from Alaska how helpful he was to us in pointing out some of the great unmet needs that he is dealing with in his state. A beautiful state, a very interesting state that has very unique needs. And I just want him to know how much I appreciated his working with us, giving us the facts as we needed them, and also Senator Murkowski. But I particularly want to say, Senator Begich, thank you. You happen to be in the chair, and I really feel you were immensely effective for your state. But really, you made the case for fairness, and I hope that you feel comfortable with how this bill turned out. I have never met a team of more dedicated staff, never, than I have seen. Again, they're not resting because we're not done. And until we're done, they're not resting. But we are talking seriously about this staff getting 3-4 hours of sleep over the last 2-3 days. The issues were still coming at us in ways we couldn't believe. At noon today, last night, we had to work out some issues. So it has been, in many ways, a very difficult negotiation, but certainly, if and when this bill comes before us and is passed, a very satisfying one. I have to mention Bettina Poirier, who is my chief of staff and chief counsel. I've never seen anyone more professional, more energetic, more persuasive. I have to thank her counterparts, David, Grant, Andrew, Jason, Tyler, Mary and Kate, and Paul, all of whom were just amazing. And if I left anyone out, forgive me. I will correct it in the record if I did. And I have to say to Senator Inhofe's staff, you were amazing and part of the team. We worked together. If we had disagreements, we talked them out. But for the most part, we were on the same page. So Ruth and James, you know who you are. You also have had a very rough few days and working very hard at this. I want to say that Congressman Mica's staff also worked very hard, and they're very tough negotiators. But we were able to talk out our differences. It wasn't always pleasant to deal with it because people see things in different ways, but we got it done. So we're not out of the woods yet in the sense that we don't have the bill before us. We are awaiting a decision made by the leaders as to when we will have this vote. But I would like to say, I believe as I stand here tonight, that really the work of the conference is completed, and that is very, very, very rewarding. The last thing I want to say is a huge thank you to the outside groups who have stood by my side this entire time. And I tell you that I've had conference calls with them for months and months, sometimes 4 times a week, sometimes 3 times a week, sometimes 6 times a week, seriously, sometimes on Saturdays, sometimes on Fridays, Mondays, whenever we needed to touch bases. This is an amazing coalition of people, people from workers, from organized labor, people from the construction trades. The Chamber of Commerce and the AFL-CIO work together. That's a rarity, in today's very difficult atmosphere where everyone is arguing over everything. The granite people, the cement people. And I want to say something to a gentleman, I won't identify his name, who brought a couple of his cement trucks, and we had a rally. And I think, Senator Begich, you were there. And after the rally, we were saying, pass the bill, get the bill done. I talked to this gentleman, and he identified himself as a conservative Republican who is so much for this bill. And one of the most, I think, touching things that happened was that he introduced me to 2 of his drivers who came over to meet me. And I realized as I stood there with these 2 gentlemen and the owner of the business, how much they were counting on us. What we do here matters. What we do here should matter. What we do here is literally life and death for the construction industry, for the business end and for the workers. And we know, our president and all of us, we all know that this economic recovery is too slow. And one of the things that's weighing it down is the construction industry. One of the things that is weighing it down is the transportation sector. And we know if we don't do our job and we pass another extension here, that is a signal that the construction industry is going to suffer and suffer mightily. And we cannot have that. And we are on the brink of getting this done. So I know I've left out a lot of people that I want to thank, and I don't have a written speech here in front of me, And I will go back and I will correct the record if I left anyone out. But we're close to getting this done, whether it's in the next few hours or more than a few hours. I believe we'll get it done. And all the people who brought us to this day, I should mention Senator Reid, our majority leader, who just never gave up, even though I was, at one point, I'm sure he was ducking me as I walked around, because I'd always say, Senator, let's keep going, Mr. Leader, and he did. He kept on going. And I think when we went over to meet with Speaker Boehner, that was a moment that was very important with Chairman Micah. It was important. And I think it helped us at that point realize that everyone did want to have a bill. I have to say, the Democrats in the House, I'm sure it's been very difficult for them because they had so many priorities as well. But they were very clear day after day, pushing hard for a bill until finally everybody came together and passed some messages to the conferees which said, get the job done. And everybody came together on that one, get the job done. So, Mr. President, for me personally, this has been a very important day. This is a day when I think we're very close to getting a transportation bill done.